This is part two of the second part of the Ezekiel's temple. What is it really? And I had to break this into two because it was so long and it was not wanting to save and upload. So hopefully this works this time and I hope y'all enjoy it. This is when it clicked what he was describing because everything he was describing sounded familiar to me. Ezekiel 42:3. Facing the 20 cherubs that belonged to the inner court and facing the pavement that belongs to the outer court was gallery against gallery in 3 stories. This is the 3-story gallery at the Vatican. And when I read that, I was like, a gallery at the temple? It's like, that doesn't make any sense. And then it clicked. Because of the things he had been describing, I knew. I used to be an artist. I don't paint anymore because I focus doing this for Father. I use my art skill to make the slides for y'all, but that's about it. And I'm not sure about the graven image, whether I'm supposed to even be painting. And I felt like if I am in the afterlife, he'll give me a studio and paints, and he'll tell me what he wants. But for right now, I'm working for him. So this is when it clicked, though, about the galleries. And I knew right then what it was he was describing. For all I'm going to show you, for it to be accurate, the temple in Revelation should match what I'm showing you here, and it does. Revelation 18:16. Alas, alas, the great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and jewels and pearls. And this is exactly what you see. The scarlet and the purple and the fine robes and the jewelry and all the gold and all pearls and stuff. It matches exactly. Revelation 21:12. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and on the gates the names of the 12 tribes of the son of Israel were inscribed. On the east 3 gates, and on the north 3 gates, and on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Okay, this is very interesting because when you look at the wall around the Vatican, from the 3rd to the 17th century, the Aurelian Wall protected the city, and there's been as many as 18 gates at a time, although 4 or 5 of them were used only for military access. Some of the gates have been altered to make room for modernization of the city, and some were dismantled. However, 12 of them still remain in good condition. Now, as far as the 12 angels, I'm not sure if that is angels literal or angels there, and the names of the tribes were inscribed on them. I haven't found that yet. I'm still researching that. But it's interesting to note that the 3 gates, there are 3 gates in each one of the 4 directions. 3, 3 on each, like in the north, 3 in the south, 3 in the east and the west. And the foundation for this city, it would be the 12 apostles, which Peter started the church there. So this all matches. Okay, we'll continue on in Ezekiel. When he gets down in Ezekiel 13:18, there's some more descriptions. And say, Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, Woe to the women that sew pillows to all armholes, and make handkerchiefs upon the head of every statue to hunt souls. Will ye hunt souls of my people? And will you save the souls alive that come unto you? It's interesting that at the end of Lent, you will notice that purple cloths are draped over the crucifixes and statues and the saint images in the parishes. And sometimes they remove them, but usually they just drape purple things over. And the pillows he's talking about are these little scapulas. And for a long time, they were all done handmade, Now, some of them are machine-made nowadays, but they even say on them so that you won't suffer eternal fire. They're devotions to different saints and to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and all these things. And people are told that wear them, that if they wear them all the time, that they won't go to hell. And that's what he's talking about. Ezekiel 16:16, and you took some of the garments and made multicolored high places for yourself, and whored on them, which you should have come about, nor should be. So he's talking about all these places, the high places they built for themselves. They built all these temples, and now we see them everywhere, uh, all over the place, all different denominations, different idols inside. People are not worshiping Yahuwah at all. Ezekiel 16:17, and you took your splendid adornments of my gold and my silver that I gave you, and made for yourself images of a male, and whored with them. And that's what they did. They made images, even though Exodus tells us we're not to make any images of anything on heaven or on earth. But yet, that's exactly what happened. And everybody wears them. Doves, crosses, birds, fish, you name it. They got an image for everything. It's further talked about in 3:25 of Ezekiel. And thou, son of man, behold, bonds are prepared for thee. Bonds. And when this is badly translated because it means a rope or a chain or a cord. And it's not bonds like you think somebody being tied up. And they shall bind, that means fasten it, thee with them, and thou shalt not come forth of the midst of them. What he's talking about is they're going to take your image and they're going to put it on a chain and put it around their neck, and they're going to carry them with you everywhere they go. And that's what he was talking about, is necklaces. It's just poorly mistranslated. Ezekiel 16:18, and you took your embroidered garments and covered them with, and you set my oil and my incense before them. They put these on the altars in front of these idols. In verse 19, and my food which I gave you, fine flour and oil and honey, which I fed you, you set it before them as a sweet incense, so it was, declares Master Yahuwah. He knew that these tables would be set up in front of all these altars and stuff. Ezekiel 16:20, and you took your sons and your daughters, whom you bore to me, and these you slaughtered as food for them. Were your whorings a small matter, that you have slain my children and gave them up by causing them to pass through the fire? And in all your abominations and whorings you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, trapped down in your blood. Then it came to be after your evil, woe, woe to you, declares Master Yahuwah, that you also built an arched place for yourself and made a high place in every street for yourself. You built your high places at the head of every way, and made your loveliness to be loathed, and you parted your feet to any one who passed by, and increased your whorings. And you whored with the sons of Egypt, your neighbors, great flesh, and you increased your whorings to provoke me. And what he's talking about here, he's not talking about they put their kid on an altar and stabbed a knife in them or something like that. He's talking about you gave your sons and daughters up by doing all this. Why would you do that? It's like they created a system that would essentially damn our soul to eternity, of darkness, because it's not following the laws of Yahuwah. And I know a lot of people will argue with me, but it's like the Son of Man said, it's easier for heaven and earth to be passed away than for one stroke of that law to become void. Yet that's exactly what they did. Now they got 4 billion people out there doing the wrong thing, and they're handing themselves and their children over to an eternity of darkness. I mean, that's pretty bad. And I mean, I see people post these satanic churches and stuff on Facebook, and they don't realize they're doing the same thing. The exact same thing. Because this is not what he wanted. Ezekiel 16:31 and 32. You built your arched place in the head of every way, and built your high place in every street. Yet you were unlike a whore. You scorned a harlot fee, the wife who commits adultery, who takes strangers instead of his husband. And they did. They took strangers instead of their husband. Your husband is Yahuwah. And it's like he expects you to follow his law and his statutes and stuff. But that's not what we have today. And that's why the remnant of the trees of the forest in the last day will be so small a child can write them down. That's what Isaiah tells us. That's how many real followers there will be on the last day. Does that match the picture of what we see today in the world? Is that 4 billion people? Can a child write down 4 billion people? No. It's time to get scared because we've messed up. It's time to turn around and do the right things. Ezekiel 12:10 and 11 tells, as I have done, so it is done to them. Say to them, thus says Master Yahuwah, the message is to the prince of Jerusalem and to the house of Israel, who are in the midst. Say, I am a sign to you. As I have done, so it is done to them. They are to go into exile, into captivity. Now, let's see where the Son of Man talks about this. Luke 21:16. And you shall also be betrayed by your parents and your brothers and your relatives and your friends. And some of you will be put to death, and you shall be hated by all because of my name. But not a hair of your head will be lost. Possess your lives by your endurance. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. And believe it or not, that desolation has already happened. We are desolate right now. We're in the wrath. So we have to be begging at this point. It says, we're told fear of Elohim is the beginning of knowledge, and it is. Because people have been going through the wrath since 73 AD, and they don't even realize it. And again, if you don't know that, you need to watch some of my other videos because I explain it really well. This prophecy explains that Peter had to bear his baggage and leave, just as Yahuwah said it would be. Ezekiel 12:12 through 16. And the prince who is in their midst is to bear his baggage on his shoulder at dark and go out. They are to dig through the wall to bring them out through. He is to cover his face so that he does not see the land with his eyes. And I shall spread my net over him, and he shall be caught in my snare. I shall bring him to Babel, the land of Kasdim, but he shall not see it, and yet die there. And I shall scatter to every wind all who are around him to help him, and all his bands. And I shall draw out the sword after them. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah when I scatter them among the nations. And I shall disperse them throughout the lands. But I shall let A few of their men escape from the sword, from scarcity of food, and from pestilence, so that they can recount all the abominations among the nations wherever they go, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Okay, so where do we see this in the New Testament? We see it in Acts 12:6-8. Now when Herod was about to bring him out on that very night, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers bound in two chains, and sentries before the doors were guarding the prison. And behold, an angel of Yahuwah stood next to them, and a light shone into the cell. He struck Peter on the side of his head and woke him, saying, "Get up quickly." And the chains fell off his hands, and the angel said, "Dress yourself and put on your sandals." And he did so. And he said to them, "Wrap your cloak." Well, cloak in Greek is actually your upper garment. He was talking about covering his head. And he went out and followed him. He did not know that what was being done by the angel was real, but thought he was seeing a vision. And when they passed the first and second guard, they came to an iron gate leading out of the city. It opened for them on its own accord. And when they went out, he went along one street, and immediately the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure Yahuwah has sent this angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod, and from all that the Jewish people were expecting." Okay. And we see in John 21:17-19, he said to them a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter was grieved, because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Yahushua said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go." And then John tells us that he said to show what kind of death he was to glorify Elohim. And after saying this, he said to him, "Follow me." And glorify in Greek, this is also interesting. Actually, the word means to think or to suppose or to believe or to judge. So it was actually what kind of death was to judge him by Elohim, not glorify. They've done a lot of monkeying with the scriptures, unfortunately. But this is the prophecy, and this is it fulfilled. Okay, in Ezekiel 12:14-16, this is where Yahuwah talks about the scattering of the followers to the Son of Man. And I shall scatter to every wind all who are around him to help him, and all the bands, and I will draw out the sword after them. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah. When I scatter them among the nations, I shall disperse them throughout the lands. But I shall let a few of their men escape from the sword, from the scarcity of food, and from the pestilence, so that they recount all their abominations among the nations, wherever they go. And they shall know I am Yahuwah. And we hear the Son of Man talking about this in Matthew 26:30-32. And when they sung a hymn, and they went out of the Mount of Olives, and then Yahushua said to them, "You will fall away because of me this night, for it is written, I strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." And he also talks in Matthew 24. I didn't put that in there, but he talks in Matthew 24 about the sword and the scarcity of food and the pestilence. So there's actually two places. There's another place in Luke also. In Ezekiel 13:10-16, Yahuwah lets the Son of Man know they will teach peace or grace when there is none. Because they have led my people astray, saying peace when there is no peace, safety specifically, this is when in Hebrew, safety specifically with Elohim, especially in covenant relationship, thus the grace message that Paul and them were pushing. And when one is building a wall, see, they are coating it with whitewash. Say to those who coat with whitewash, it shall fall. There shall be flooding rain, and you, O great hailstones, fall, and a stormy wind break it down. And see, the wall shall fall. Shall you not be asked, where is the coating with which it was coated with? Therefore, thus says Master Yahuwah, I shall break down with a stormy wind in my wrath, and the flood rain in my displeasure, and a great hailstone in wrath to consume. And I shall throw down the wall you have coated with the whitewash, and bring it down to the ground, and its foundation shall be covered. And it shall fall, and you shall be consumed in the midst of it. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah. So I shall complete my wrath on the wall, and on the coating it, and those coating it with whitewash. Say to you, the wall is no more, nor those whitewashing it. The prophets of Israel, who are prophesying concerning Jerusalem, and who are seeing visions of peace for her when there is no peace, declares Master Yahuwah. And this is Peter and Paul, and them saying that we have decided that, it's like we'll be saved by grace. You see it here in Romans 4:5. But to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifies the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. And see, right there he's going against Yahuwah's word, because Yahuwah tells us in the Old Testament he will not justify the ungodly, that it's even an abomination to him. In Acts 15:11, but we believe that we will be saved through grace, through Lord Jesus, just as they will. And then in Matthew 23, there's a whole section where Yahushua comes out and he's talking about all of this in that section, but this is like the main verse. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, with the outward appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and uncleanness. And that goes back to the temple, because Yahuwah told him that they would have dead bones stored in there, and they do. They have the corpses of a whole bunch of the popes. They have relics and bones and stuff from saints and stuff that they've put in there. It's just really disgusting. But he knew what they would do, because the Father had told him in Ezekiel. I can just hear these two talking. The Spirit told me, no, Jesus appeared to me, but he talks all about this in Ezekiel 13. Thus says Master Yahuwah, woe to the foolish prophets who are following their own spirit without having a vision. O Israel, your prophets have been like foxes among the ruins. You have not gone up into the breaches, nor do you build a wall for the house of Israel to stand in a battle in the day of Yahuwah. Their visions are false, and their divinations a lie, saying, thus says Yahuwah, when Yahuwah has not sent them. Yet they expected the word to be confirmed. Have you not seen a false vision, and have you not spoken a divination of lies? You say, Yahuwah declares, when I have not spoken. Therefore, thus says Master Yahuwah, because you have spoken falsehood and seen lies, therefore see, I am against you, declares Master Yahuwah. My hand shall be against the prophet who sees falsehood and who divines lies. They shall not be in the council of my people, or be written in the record of the house of Israel. And they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am the Master Yahuwah. And see, they brought their way on themselves. It's like the persecution that came right after that, because he was angry. I mean, immediately, Stephen's martyred by Paul in 35 AD, and in 42 AD, the Apostle James is beheaded by Herod Agrippa, and then and then in 49 AD, the Jews were expelled from Rome, In 64 AD, Nero launched just all-out persecution on them and just went after them and killed tons and tons of them. And this is what it was about. And in Luke 24:44, now he said to them, These are my words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, and all the things which are written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled. Now, the one thing you got to understand is when the Son of Man is speaking, he has the words of Yahuwah coming out of his mouth. And this is what he said in Ezekiel 34. Remember, he got all over Peter and said, Feed my sheep. Now listen to these words. Then the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to those shepherds, Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, Woe, shepherds of Israel, who have been feeding themselves. Should not shepherds feed the flock? You eat the fat and clothe yourselves with wool. You slaughter the fat sheep without feeding the flock. Those who are sickly you have not strengthened. The diseased you have not healed. The broken you have not bound up. The scattered you have not brought back. Nor have you sought for the lost. But with force and severity you have dominated them. They were scattered for lack of a shepherd, and became food for every beast of the field, and were scattered. My flock wandered through all the mountains and on every high hill. My flock was scattered all over the surface of the earth, and there was no one to search or seek for them. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of Yahuwah. As I live, declares Yahuwah Elohim, surely because my flock has become prey, my flock has even become food for the beasts of the field, for lack of a shepherd. And my shepherds did not search for my flock, but rather the shepherds fed themselves, and did not feed the flock. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, Behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will demand my sheep from them, and make them cease from feeding the sheep. So the shepherds will not feed themselves any more, but I will deliver my flock from their mouth, so that they will not be food for them. And I can attest to this by my own personal testimony that he is correct, because I would never have seen all the lies if it wasn't for him. And it's really strange, but I mean, I don't know why I deserved it, but he showed me this stuff. And he's talking about them with force and severity, and a lot of people that read the New Testament don't even see that part. I really don't understand that, because Peter and them did exactly that. It's like when Ananias and his wife didn't give up all their earthly money where they had sold their home and all. He dropped them dead right there. And everybody says, "Oh, well, that was God did that." No, that wasn't God, because it's like when the Son of Man told you, he said, "Don't be afraid of the one that can kill your body, but be afraid of the one that can destroy both your body and your soul." And he did not tell them to go out, and if people didn't give up their belongings, to drop them dead. He said if they didn't hear what they wanted, what he had told them to tell them, to shake their sandals, the sand from their sandals, and walk on. But he never told them to kill people. But they did. They killed people. And another place you see where they weren't doing right, they were not taking care of the widows. The priest had to come to them from the temple and said, the widows are being neglected. So instead of actually going to do it, they said, well, we can't take time from our prayers and what we're doing, we're busy. And instead of taking care of them, they went and found some people to go do it. But it was still, it's like they were not doing what they were supposed to do. And I forgot to tell y'all, I added these because they're kind of in between the next section where it talks about the description of the temple again, but I wanted you to see even further from the Son of Man video I did that this is exactly, I mean, what this is in Ezekiel. It is Father talking to the Son of Man, telling him what's going to happen and giving him instructions. And I wanted you to be able to see that because if you don't see that, you might think, oh, she's lost her mind, you know. But if you stick with it all the way to the end, you'll see it. This one is Yahuwah tells the Son of Man about the vine. Ezekiel 15:2-8. Son of man, how is the vine tree better than any tree? The vine branch that has been among the trees of the forest. Is wood taken from it to be made into any work? Do they take a peg from it to hang on any vessel? Now that verse right there is taking you the peg, the sure peg that I did the video on. That takes you to Isaiah 22, where Peter goes where he shouldn't go and lets somebody else dress him, and then he dies because of it. And that is in the Sure Peg video I did. So if you want to watch that one, that'll explain a lot about the peg. And you'll see things about the rock and the peg, because a lot of times it's talking about Peter and the prophets when you see those two words. Verse 4. See, into the fire it shall be given for fuel. Both ends of the fire shall burn it, and its middle shall be scorched. Is it fit for any work? See, when it was intact, it was not made for work, much less when the fire has burned it and it is scorched. Shall it be used for work? Therefore, thus says Master Yahuwah, as the vine tree among the trees of the forest, which I have given to the fire for fuel, so I shall give up the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I shall set my face against them, and they shall go out of the fire, but fire consumes them, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah, when I set my face against them. And I shall make the land a wasteland, because they committed trespass, declares Master Yahuwah. Now we see the Son of Man talking about the vine a lot in the seeds and planting and producing fruit. It uses all these same metaphors in John 15, verses 1-10. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that bears no fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, so that it bears more fruit. And he's saying this is me working for the Father when you look at those two verses. And that the Father's the one that does the actual pruning. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Stay in me, and I stay in you. As the branch is unable to bear fruit of itself, unless it stays in the vine, so neither unless you stay in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. He who stays in me, and I in him, he bears much fruit, because without me you are able to do naught. If anyone does not stay in me, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up. And they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you stay in me, and my words stay in you, you shall ask whatever you wish, and it shall be done for you. In this my Father is esteemed, that you bear much fruit, and you shall be my taught ones. As the Father has loved me, I also loved you. Stay in me. If you guard my commandments, if you guard my commands, not commandments, you shall stay in my love, even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in his love. So he's like a teacher and going to teach us what we need to do. And if we stay with him, then the Father will prune us and make us produce even more fruit. So it's always a refining, because he said during this time of all of us being in the wilderness, that he's going to refine us and work with us and change us and all, and that's what we want. So we're ready when the new kingdom comes, you know. In Ezekiel 16:30, Yahuwah talks about the heart to the Son of Man. He says, "How weak is your heart, declares the Master Yahuwah, seeing you do all this, the deeds of a shameless whore." He's talking about the house of Israel. And in Luke 16:15, this is what Son of Man says. And he said to them, "You are those who justify yourselves before men, but Elohim knows your heart. For what is exalted among man is an abomination in the sight of Elohim." We see this also in Ezekiel 29. In the 10th year, in the 10th month, on the 12th day of the month, the word of Yahuwah came to me. Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and prophesy against him, against all Egypt, and speak and say, Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, Behold, I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that lies in the midst of the streams, that says, My Nile is my own, and I made it for myself. I will put hooks in your jaw, and make the fish of your streams stick to your scales. And I will draw you up out of the midst of the streams, and all the fish of your streams that stick to your scales. And I will cast you out into the wilderness, and you and all the fish of your streams. You shall fall in an open field, and not be brought together or gathered. To the beasts of the earth and to the birds of the heavens I will give you as food. Then all the inhabitants of Egypt shall know that I am Yahuwah. The dragnet was explained to the Son of Man by Yahuwah in Ezekiel. Ezekiel 32, verse 2 through 3. Son of man, take up a lamentation for Pharaoh, sovereign of Egypt, and you shall say to him, You are like a young lion among the nations, and you are like a monster in the seas, and you burst forth in your rivers, and trouble the waters with your feet, and muddy their rivers. Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, I will throw my net over you with a host of many peoples, and they will haul you up in my dragnet. And it's mentioned again in Habakkuk 1:14 through 17. And make men as fish of the sea, and as creeping things that have no ruler over them. They take up all of them with the angle. They catch them in their nets, and gather them in their drag. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice unto the net, and burn incense unto their drag. Because by them their portion is fat, and their meat plenteous. Shall they therefore empty their net, and not spare continually to slay the nation? And when did this happen? This happened when the Son of Man sent it out to happen. Matthew 13:47 through 50. Again, the rain of heaven is like a dragnet that was thrown into the sea, and gathered some of every kind, which when it was filled, they drew to the shore. And they sat down and gathered the good into containers, but threw the rotten away. Thus shall it be at the end of the age. The messengers shall come forth, and separate the wicked out of the midst of the righteous, and shall throw them into the furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So he's repeating exactly what the Father told him, and he's warning. He's a watchman, he's warning. Matthew 4:18 and 19. And Yahushua, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brothers, Simon called Kepha, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, Follow me, and I shall make you fishers of men. He was setting up the dragnet for Father, is what he was doing. It's in Ecclesiastes 9:12. For even man does not know his time, like fish taken in an evil net, and like birds caught in a snare. So the sons of men are snared in an evil time, when it comes down on them suddenly. So this whole thing is Father's wrath. The Son of Man tried to warn, but nobody listened. Ezekiel 33:7 through 9. So you, Son of Man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. Wherever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them warning from me. If I say to the wicked, O wicked one, you shall surely die, and you do not speak to warn the wicked one to turn from his ways, that wicked person shall die in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at your hand. But if you warn the wicked to turn from his way, and he does not turn from his way, that person shall die in his iniquity, but you will have delivered your soul. And here it is in John 8:23 through 30. He warned them. He said to them, You are from below, and I am from above. You are of this world, and I am not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins, for unless you believe that I am He, you will die in your sins. So they said to him, Who are you? Yahushua said to them, Just what I have been telling you from the beginning. I have much to say about you and much to judge, but he who sent me is true, and I declare to the world what I have heard from him. They did not understand that he had been speaking to them about the Father. I'll explain something here. When he was speaking the Father's words. That's why there's so much confusion. I was confused for a long time. He was literally the agent for Father. It's like in the Old Testament, you have he visited them. Well, the way Father visits, he has an agent that delivers a message for him, and he was the agent for the Father. Okay, let's continue on. I'm sorry, I had to explain it there. So Yahushua said to them, When you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know I am He. And what he meant by that was not the I'm the great I am like they put out. The Son of Man was not Yahuwah. He was talking about that he was the Son of Man. He was hoping they would connect to Ezekiel. Because he goes on to continue that I do nothing on my own authority, but speak just as the Father taught me, and he who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do the things that are pleasing to him. As he was saying these things, many believed in him. And how was the Father with him? We know when he was baptized. It says the Holy Spirit descended on him in bodily form. It was actually with him. So when they were speaking to him, they were speaking to the Father. And that is how we have this confusion. And I was confused for a long time because the words, you can see they're so similar. I kept thinking he's got to be the Father because his words match identical. But I was wrong. And Father has showed me that. So I hope y'all get that part if you don't get anything else, because it is idol worship to worship the Son. You have to worship the only true Elohim, which is Yahuwah. In Ezekiel 33:30-33, Yahuwah tells the Son of Man what'll come in the future, and he's talking about just like it is today, where these preachers get up and say, "Come hear the word of the Lord." Listen to what he's telling him. "As for you, Son of Man, your people, who talk together about you by the walls and at the doors of their houses, say to one another, each to his brother, Come and hear what the word is that comes from Yahuwah. And they come to you as people come, and they sit before you as my people, and they hear what you say, but they will not do it. For their lustful talk is in their mouths, they act. Their heart is set on gain. And behold, you are to them like one who sings lustful songs with a beautiful voice, and plays well on an instrument. For they hear what you say, but they will not do it. When this comes, and come it will, then they will know that a prophet has been among them." Very interesting, because he's saying a whole lot there. And it's just like you see in the churches today. They sing these lustful, beautiful songs all to the Son, and they never sing about the Father, because they didn't hear what he was saying. They didn't understand what he was saying. They didn't understand who he was. I think this book describes who he is by sitting and listening to the Father instructing him on all this. You get a sense for what he was and how he and the Father interacted together. And it's very interesting. And he calls him a prophet. He calls him a shepherd. He calls him a watchman. He tells him that he's going to speak his words. And never once does he call the Son of Man another Elohim. He doesn't. But that is what we got from Peter and Paul. They turned him into another deity. The Son of Man is given dominion. And we see this in Daniel and in Psalms. Here's part of it in Daniel, verses 13-14. "I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, and glory, and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which will not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed." And here it is in Ezekiel. Yahuwah is telling him exactly what he is going to inherit. And this pretty much proves that the Son of Man in Ezekiel is the same Son of Man that is in the New Testament. This is Ezekiel 47 verses. Well, there's several different verses. I picked out the ones on the inheritance so that y'all can go back and read the whole chapter if you want to. Ezekiel 1. "Afterward he brought me again to the door of the house, and behold, waters issued forth from under the threshold of the house eastward, for the forefront of the house stood toward the east, and the waters came down from under." In verse 6, "And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen this? Then he brought me and caused me to return to the brink of the river." And then verse 13, "And thus says Adonai Yahuwah, this shall be the border whereby ye shall inherit the land according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions." And then verse 14, "And ye shall inherit it, as well as another concerning the which I lifted up my hand to give it unto your fathers, and the land shall fall unto you for an inheritance. So shall ye divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that ye shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, to strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among children of Israel. They shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that what tribe the stranger sojourns, there shall he be given his inheritance, says Adonai Yahuwah. And this map is the one that they think fits Ezekiel on dividing up everything. And they don't realize that it's not even in that area. The border has been expanded. But I thought that was interesting because it's clearly indicating that the Son of Man inherits, and then he divides it up between the tribes, and then the strangers that sojourn are the ones that aren't of the tribes that inherit also, because if you follow Yahuwah and you follow his laws and his commandments and you love him with all your heart, then you're part of his family. You see that you can read that in Isaiah 56. He says, if you keep his Sabbath and you keep his 10 commandments and you keep his statutes, that do not think that you're not one of his. So, even without Paul, you're grafted in, is what I'm saying. So I think a lot of people fear seeing Paul for what he really is because they're afraid they'll lose that grafting in. It's all in the Old Testament. And, you're not going to lose that just because you stand up for what is true and what's not true. Here we see where he tells him about the sea. And this is where he gave his prophecy out. He said, Son of man, say to the prince of Tyrus, thus says Master Yahuwah, because your heart is lifted up, and you say, I am El, and I sit in the seat of Elohim, in the heart of the seas, whereas you are a man and not El, though you set your heart as the heart of Elohim. And he talks about the sea when he gives his warning about the only sign that everybody would get would be the sign of Jonah. And this reads, Then Jonah prayed to Yahuwah, his Elohim, from the belly of the fish, saying, I call out to Yahuwah out of my distress, and he answered me out of the belly of Sheol, which is actually Saul. I cried, and you heard my voice, for you cast me into the deep, in the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me, and all your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight, yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. The waters closed in over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me, and weeds were wrapped around my head. At the roots of the mountains I went down to the land, whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Yahuwah my Elohim. When your life was fading away, I remembered Yahuwah, and my prayer came to you, into your holy temple. Those who pay regard to vain idols forsake their hope of steadfast love. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed. I will pay. Salvation belongs to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out of the dry land. So what did it take for Jonah to get out of the heart of the seas in the belly of the whale? It took him acknowledging Yahuwah as his salvation, and then he was vomited out. And see, he told us in Matthew 16:4, an evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but none will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. So he left and departed them. And when he says evil and adulteress, adulteress is somebody that goes after any other thing besides Yahuwah. There is no other Elohim. There's only one Elohim. And that's very important for us to get in our minds because, like I said, I messed up, for years thinking that Yahushua was Yahuwah, and he wasn't. And now I have to acknowledge that and repent of that and teach it the way it should be and pray I didn't lead anybody down the wrong path. But the reason I kept thinking that is because I kept hearing him in the Old Testament, and they both sounded exactly alike, but I did not understand about how Yahuwah operates. He sends a person as his messenger and puts his words in their mouth, and they act like an agent for him. And you are hearing his words coming out of somebody else's mouth. That's why John said nobody had ever seen or heard the Father, and only the Son has made him known. That's because the Son is the one that is the messenger that delivers the messages. When the Old Testament, when they say there's a visitation, that's what it means. It's like he sent somebody to tell his words. And it's once you get that in your head and you start seeing it all in the Old Testament, then it makes sense. And not that Yahushua is not to be honored and all. He is. He's the Son. And even in Psalms it says, kiss the Son, yet lest he be angry at you. He's going to be our ruler in the new kingdom. He's our ruler. And that's because he inherited everything from the Father. I hope that makes sense, because it's taken me a long time to figure it all out. Ezekiel 32:11. A sword is the word or words from somebody. For thus says the Master Yahuwah, the sword of the sovereign of Babel shall come upon you, the words of the sovereign of Babel, or Babylon, by the swords of mighty men, all of them the ruthless ones of the nations. I shall make your host fall, and they shall ravage the arrogant of Egypt, and all its hosts shall be destroyed. And I shall destroy all the beasts from beside its great waters, and let the foot of the man trouble them no more, nor let the hoof-beat of beast trouble them. Then I shall make their waters clear, and make their rivers run like oil, declares the Master Yahuwah. When I lay the land of Egypt waste, and the land shall be stripped of all that once filled it, then I have stricken all who dwell in it. Then they shall know that I am Yahuwah. This is the lamentation, and they shall lament her, the daughters of the nation, lament her over Egypt and over her crowd. They shall lament over her, declares Yahuwah. And we see this same thing being told to John in Revelation 2:16. Repent, but if not, I come to you quickly, and I will make war with them by the sword of the mouth. In Revelation 19:21, and the rest were killed by the sword of the one sitting on the horse, and the sword having gone forth from his mouth. The sword is the words, and it, like I said, those wheels in Ezekiel are the threshing floor, and they're the words of the Son of Man that were given to him by the Father to say. So it is the Father's words. But that is the sword that gets everybody, because they didn't listen. And Egypt, when you talk about Babylon, Egypt in these prophecies, a lot of times that's not talking about physical Egypt that we know in northern Africa. It's talking about those that are outside of the covenant. And it's talking about those that are in an adulterous state. Egypt is like the bad place or whatever, because it is parallel to what happened in Exodus in the real Egypt when they were, freed from Pharaoh and all. Just to let you know that it's not always talking about the literal Egypt. Revelation 10:7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh messenger, when he may be about to sound, and the secret of Elohim may be finished, as he did declare to his own servants, to the prophets. This gives you a big clue. This is where you find everything you need to know for the last days. And I believe the reason all this is opening up is that seventh messenger is about to be sounded. And that's why we're understanding these things now. Peter's mysterious rescue is in Ezekiel. Ezekiel 12, 10 through 13. Say to them, Thus says Master Yahuwah, this message is to the prince of Jerusalem and to all the house of Israel, who are in their midst. Say, I am a sign to you. As I have done, so it is done to them. And they are to go into exile, into captivity. And the prince who is in their midst is to bear his baggage on his shoulder at dark and go out. They are to dig through the wall to bring them out through it. He is to cover his face so that he does not see the land with his eyes. And I shall spread my net over him, and he shall be caught in my snare. And I will bring him to Babylon, in the land of the Chaldeans, but he shall not see it, and yet die there. He's given the prophecy and telling the Son of Man what's going to happen to Peter. And here it is in Acts 12:7, starting in verse 7. And behold, an angel of Yahuwah stood next to him, and a light shone through the cell. He struck him, Peter, on his side, and when he struck him, it means he smite him. They didn't really translate that real clearly, but he was smiting him. On his side meant in the rib in the side of his body, and they woke him up, saying, Get up quickly, and the chains fell off his hands. And the angel said to him, Dress yourself and put on your sandals. And he did so. And he said to them, Wrap your cloak and follow me. And when he said wrap your cloak, the word for cloak means an upper garment or mantle. He was essentially telling him to cover his head. And he went out and followed him. He did not know that what was being done by the angel was true or real, but thought he was seeing a vision. And when Peter came to himself, he said, Now I am sure that Yahuwah has sent an angel and rescued or plucked me out, is what that means. It wasn't really rescued, they plucked him out. From the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people are expecting. But motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he described to them how Yahuwah had brought him out of prison and said these things to James and to his brothers. Then he departed and went to another place. And they don't really give you much more detail, but they give you enough, if it was translated correctly, that you can see this is when Yahuwah gets him and sends him to Babylon. Okay, I'm going to show you some more of the verses that show what he was seeing in the temple. Ezekiel 40:17. To the space above the door, even to the inner room on the outside, and all the walls around, inside and out was measured pattern. It was carved of cherubim and palm trees. A palm tree between a cherubim and a cherubim. Every cherubim had two faces. A human face toward the palm tree on one side and the face of a young lion toward the palm tree on the other. They were carved on the whole temple all around, and from the floor to above the door. The cherubim and the palm trees were carved. Similarly, the wall of the nave. this is what I think he was seeing, was all these weird cherub faces that are facing each other and then facing away, and you'll even notice that there's these weird creatures in the corner of these tiles, and these are, like he describes, they're from the whole floor to above the doors. They're everywhere. And I looked and looked and looked on Google till I found an image that would work, that I could count the steps on this, on the entrance, because I knew that there was a reason why everything was very specific. Ezekiel 40:31, its archway faced the outer court, palm trees were on the gatepost, and going up it were 8 steps. And I actually got a good shot where I could count them, and there were 8 steps. And I have another shot. I don't know if it's in here or not. This is so much information, and I had like 2 files of research that I had been doing, and I tried to compile it into video for y'all, and I don't think I found my slide yet on the altar, but when I counted the altar steps in that verse, they also match. So I've not found anything that doesn't match so far. And it's pretty mind-blowing to realize this, because so many things have significance. It's like, remember when that Pope resigned not long ago, before Pope Francis was in there, and the lightning struck the temple twice, in that when they were getting ready to vote? And then there's been several incidences at the temple itself that have new meaning now that we know all this. It's pretty interesting. This shows the palm tree on the gatepost, and that's what he was talking about. And when you study art history, that's what they call this, palm columns. And you see the little weird, you've got the little weird cherubs again too, like in the recesses of these little archways. It's just all very indicative that this is exactly the temple, and it has been built. The scripture scholars support the offsets is to rely on a wall, that the chamber buildings grow wider as it winds up, and I put the verse numbers there. And this is strong evidence that they think the Millennium Temple complex will employ a winding staircase, just as Solomon's temple did. And there are 2 winding staircases in this building. And I just thought that was interesting. There's this one, this big one, and then there's, and it's actually in the museum area, and then there is a smaller one in the actual basilica. And the one pictures on the left are the smaller one, and they wind all the way up Turska, all the way to the top, and look out the top of that dome. But it's pretty interesting that they think that there was a spiral staircase by these verses, and then when you look, there is a spiral staircase in this temple. In Ezekiel 40:15, he talks about there were windows all around on the inside, and on each gatepost. And when you look, there are actual windows all the way around on each side, on both sides, all the way around. That's why I put the red box on that. But you can go through and read all this, and if you look at the pictures, you can visual it in your mind. Once you know that this is probably it, it's like you can see it real clear then when you're reading, because you can go pick out these things and they're there. It was mind blowing to me when I figured this out. In Ezekiel 40:17, it says, "Then he brought me to the outer court, and there was chambers and a pavement made all around the court. 30 chambers faced the pavement, and the pavement was on the side of the gateways, corresponding to the length of the gateways." And the gateways, I think, is like that little straight area, and then there's these chambers all the way around the sides. Um, Then he measured for the width from the lower gate to the front of the inner court exterior, 100 cubits toward the east and the north. Okay, east would be looking, not facing the basilica, but looking the other way. And north would be this wall where all these people are walking. That would be the north side. I know that from studying this thing, but it's like, I would say that those measurements are pretty accurate, and there definitely is pavement everywhere like he describes. This is amazing, really, when you think about it. This is the side rooms to the south. Ezekiel 41, 5. And he measured the wall of the temple, and it was 10.5 feet thick. And I checked that, and it's about 10.5 feet thick. And there was a row of rooms along the outside wall. Each room was 7 feet wide. These side rooms were built in 3 levels, one above the other, and there are 3 levels, and with 30 rooms on each level. And I'm not sure exactly how many rooms are in each level, so that would be a real hard one without having somebody that knows more about these side rooms. Each level was wider than the one below, and that's true. When you look at the pictures, it's like it gets wider as it goes to the top. Let's see, corresponding to the narrowing of the temple as it rose. A stairway led up from the bottom level through the middle level at the top level. And there, where I've put that little red, that's the stairs to the middle, and it leads upward. Uh-oh, sorry about that. And I saw the temple was built on a terrace, which provided a foundation for the side rooms. This terrace was about 10.5 feet high, and the outer wall of the temple side rooms was 8 3/4 feet thick. This left an open area between the side rooms and the row of rooms on the outer wall of the inner courtyard. This open area was 35 feet wide. So the open area right there would be 35 feet wide. And it went all the way around the temple. The 2 doors opened from the side rooms to the terrace yard, and it was 8 3/4 wide. One door faced north and the other faced south. And I don't know where the doors are on that, so that would be hard to tell. But I'm pretty sure the terraces are there too. I checked that part. And I put you a directional thing in that so you could see the directions. So this would be the south side, the rooms to the south side. I forgot to add this part. These side chambers, there were offsets around to the temple that served as supports to the side chambers. And this is the offsets. There's one there, and then there's one above it where I've got the red line. There's another one, a mirroring one. There's 2 of them. And I kind of had to look at this for a little bit, and I looked at the map. It's like there's a large building stood on the west facing the temple courtyard. There is a huge building there. It's 122.5 feet wide by 157.5 feet long, and its walls were 8 3/4 feet thick. Then the man measured the temple, and it was 175 feet long, and the courtyard around the building, including its walls, was an additional 175 feet. The inner courtyard to the east of the temple was also 175 feet wide, and the building to the west, including its 2 walls. Now, this building does have extremely thick walls, as you can tell there. It's St. Stephen's of Ambitians built by Pope Leo III, and named Santo Stefano Margheria. It stands above the ruins of a pagan temple dedicated to Vesta, and was originally built in a circular building with 20 Corinthian columns, which is a common plan for many of the Vesta things. It was rebuilt in 1159 under Pope Alexander, who also built a monastery for the Ethiopian monks next to it. In 1479, Pope Sixtus restored the church and assigned it to the Coptic monks. At that time, it was changed to reflect that it was served by the Ethiopians. But it is been reinforced and all. When you look at the pictures of this thing, it's got very, very extremely thick walls. And it sits in the right position for the verse. What I wish I could do is go there and sit with my scriptures and go verse by verse and find these things, and then I, locate them exactly and then measure them, and that way I would know exactly if it I'm sure it matches, though, because I don't know why, but I just know it does. Ezekiel 41:19. So that the face of the man was toward the palm tree on one side, and the face of a young lion toward the palm tree on the other, and made on all the house all around, from the floor to the space above the door, and on the wall of the temple cherubim and palm trees were carved. I got some of the pictures of the lions. They're all over the place, and I wanted you to see what I was talking about. From the floor all the way up are cherubims, 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 just like he describes. I mean, it's just covered in them. The lines could be in multiple places. That was another thing. I wish I could walk around and look at each line sculpture to see, which ones are which and what they look like and whether they have extra faces to them or not. You just have to be there to define the fine tooth of this. But I did want to share this with y'all because I think once you see, and that's why I added so many scriptures, and I know this is very long, but I wanted you to see the instructions that Yahuwah was giving the Son of Man all match what happened. And then that is one reason I saw this. It's because it follows a timeline, and you can actually look at that and tell what happens in the New Testament. And you can line up all the red letter text to what he was being told to say. And he went and said it exactly. This one shows the where it says that a man's face looking toward the palm, and on one side, and the young lion's face gazes from another, and the cherubims it's like they have two faces and they face each other and stuff. It's like, it is kind of weird like that, because it's like when you look at them, there's more than one face, and then they're facing each other. It's just a really bizarre design. And this is the ones that I got this picture from, is right there by the statue of Moses. And if you notice, they put horns on the statue of Moses, and that was intentional too, because they don't like Yahuwah's law. He's going to smash every bit of this. The Father's going to do away with it. I feel sorry for the artist. It's like Michelangelo. They made him lay on his back, I think, like 40 years to paint the Sistine Chapel roof. And he really didn't get a choice in the matter. And they dictated what he did as an artist. Because I read a book about him when I was in art school. And I felt so sorry for him. I thought, man, I cannot believe somebody would make somebody lay on their back painting a ceiling for 40 years. He mentions the abomination several times. You can see there is some bizarre stuff. This looks like naked men riding on dragons all around each one of these designs. And when you're from a distance, it would seem like you were looking at, just some kind of pattern. But when you really get up on it and look at it, it's creepy. And then all these cherubs and all the little children looking feet, they're all naked, which is disturbing to me too. And that's from the Vatican Palace in the Raphael room. that's up on the ceiling. This is something I used to wonder about when I was in art school. It's like, why is David naked? Why are all these people naked? That used to bother me really bad when I was young. Of course, I was from a small town, and I just didn't understand why everybody had to have their clothes off. But I just want to show you, this is some of the stuff that he was seeing. It's no wonder. It probably was like, wow, major, not only images, but lewd images. Ezekiel 43:6. While the man was standing beside me, I heard one speaking to me out of the temple, and he said, Son of man, this is the place of my throne, the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the people of Israel forever. The house of Israel shall no more defile my holy name, neither they nor their kings, by their whoring and their dead bodies of their kings and their high places, setting their threshold by my threshold, and their doorpost beside my doorpost, with only a wall between me and them. They have defiled my holy name by their abominations and that they have committed. So I have consumed them in my anger. Now let them put away their whoring and their dead bodies and their kings far from me, and I will dwell in their midst. So I think he was describing this by setting their threshold and my threshold, because the only thing between that altar right there and the sky and the outside is that wall. That's it. I was just sitting there thinking about this when I was looking at it. It's like, what is honored here? Is it Yahuwah or a man? It's a man. It's Peter. And I was reading Proverbs 2, and this jumped out at me. To deliver you from the strange woman, from the foreigner who flatters with her words, who forsakes champion of her youth, and has forgotten the covenant of Elohim. That's our churches. And for her house has sunk down to death, and her paths to death. None going to her does return, nor do they reach the paths of life. And I don't think they're going to reach the path of life with all this. And I'm not saying that to be hurtful to people because they became Catholic. I used to be Catholic. And I did not come out of her until I decided to seek Elohim with all my heart and with all my soul and to really dig into his word. Then I saw the truth. Ezekiel 13:19 tells all about the communion and stuff, and it says, And will he pollute me among my people for handfuls of barley and a piece of bread, to slay souls that should not die, and to save souls that should not live, by your lying to the people that hear your lies? And he's talking about the money and stuff. It's like, and this is echoed again in Isaiah 55:1, how, he said, he told the apostles not to take any money and don't ask for money. Well, this is told again in Isaiah 55:1, the compassion of Yahuwah, come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and he who has no money, come and buy and eat. Come and buy wine and milk without money and without a price. And I don't know how much people have studied the sacrifices, and because he always gives provisions for the poor. It's like, if they don't have enough money, have them get a turtle dove. And if they can't afford the turtle doves, have them bring a grain offering. It's like he was not about the money. And you can see from these verses over here, it's like, this is Paul in 1 Corinthians 9:14. In the same way, Yahuwah commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel. And in verse 11 and 12, if we have sown spiritual good among you, is it too much benefit if we reap material benefits? If others share the right claim upon you, do not we still more? And then he goes on about it in 1 Timothy 5:17 through 18. Let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of a double honor, especially those that labor in preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox when it is treading out the grain, and the laborer deserves its wages. And he also changed that. It's not even what was said in Exodus. But what did Yahushua tell us? In Matthew 10:8, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without paying, give without pay. He was not about the money, and they're all about the money. And it started with Peter and Paul, and I go over that in one of my other videos because that thing in Acts with Ananias and his wife and Peter always bothered me. And now I understand why. It's like when they didn't give over their goods to them, he killed them. And everybody says, well, that was Yahuwah killed them. There's nothing in those verses that tells you Yahuwah killed them. It was Peter, and it also tells you that those standing around were terrified and scared when it happened. Ezekiel 43:9. Now let them put away their whoring and their dead bodies of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in their midst forever. And what he's seeing there is all the tombs of the popes and stuff that are beneath the main floor of St. Peter's Basilica, and then down in the basement and up top there's some coffins too. And they actually have the people in there, and you can notice on the ends of this sarcophagus, look at the creatures. You've got the lion with the wings, and then on the other side you've got some kind of dragon looking thing, and they've all got halos. And then you've got your little two fingers up on Christ in that picture. But this is what he's talking about, and that's what he's seeing. Ezekiel 43:10. As for you, son of man, describe to the house of Israel the temple, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities. See, he's telling them this is not a good thing. And they shall measure the plan. And if they are ashamed of all that they have done, make known to them the design of the temple, its arrangement, its exits, its entrances, and that is its whole design, and make known to them as well its statutes and its whole design, all its laws, and write it down in their sight, so that they may observe all its laws and statutes and carry them out. This is the law of the temple. The whole territory on top of the mountain all around shall be holy. Behold, this is the law of the temple. He's changing what he's doing. He's going to have this temple atoned for, the altar and everything, and then it's going to be his. This is the four-horned altar at St. Peter's at the Vatican, and this is where the popes all hold their big masses and things like that, and the ordinations and stuff. And this is described in depth in the book of Ezekiel. And also, if you'll notice there, they've got Mary elevated up on the altar, just like always, and it's the same thing over and over and over. It's idol worship and paganism. But we're going to go into this altar and how it's described. Ezekiel 43:6. While the man was standing beside me, I heard one speaking to me out of the temple. And he said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne, and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the people of Israel forever. And the house of Israel shall no more defile my holy name, neither they nor their kings, by their whoring and by their dead bodies of their kings and at their high places, by setting their threshold and their doorpost between my doorpost, with only a wall between me and them. They have defiled my holy name by their abominations that they have committed, so I have consumed them in my anger. Now let them put away their whoring and the dead bodies of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in their midst forever. And this is the four-horned altar. And in the background, you see the sculpture piece we discussed. Ezekiel 43:10. As for you, son of man, describe to the house of Israel the temple, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, and they may measure the plan. And if they are ashamed of all they have done, make known to them the design of the temple, its arrangement, its exits, and its entrances, that is, the whole design, and make known to them as well all its statutes, and the whole design and all its laws, and write it down in their sight, so that they may observe all its laws and its statutes, and carry them out. This is the law of the temple. The whole territory on top of the mountain all around shall be most holy. Behold, this is the law of the temple. He's making a point here that if they're shamed, give them the measurements and design so they'll know what it is, and then give them the laws that should pertain to it. Ezekiel 43:18. And he said to me, Son of man, thus says Yahuwah Elohim, these are the ordinances for the altar, on the day when it is erected, for offering burnt offerings upon it, and for throwing blood against it. You shall give it to the Levitical priest of the family of Zadok, who draw near to me to minister to me, declares Yahuwah Elohim. A bull from the herd for a sin offering, and you shall take some of its blood and put it on the four horns of the altar, and on the four corners of the ledge, upon the rim all around. Thus you shall purify the altar and make atonement for it. You shall also take the bull of the sin offering, and it shall be burned in the appointed place belonging to the temple outside the sacred area. On the second day you shall offer a male goat without blemish for a sin offering, and the altar shall be purified, as it was purified with the bull. And when you have finished purifying it, you shall offer a bull from the herd without blemish, and a ram from the flock without blemish, and you shall present them before Yahuwah, and the priest shall sprinkle salt on them, and offer them up as a burnt offering to Yahuwah. For 7 days you shall provide daily a male goat for a sin offering, also a bull from the herd and a ram from the flock without blemish shall be provided. 7 days shall they make atonement for the altar and cleanse it and consecrate it. And when they have completed these days, from the 8th day onward, the priest shall offer on the altar your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, and I will accept you, declares Yahuwah Elohim. So he's telling them this is an altar that has to be atoned for. Ezekiel 43:13. This is where he gives the measurements. Now, a cubit would be 18 to 20 inches, and one span is approximately 10 inches. And this is how he describes it. And these are the measurements of the slaughter place in cubits, that cubit being 1 cubit and a hand's breadth. And the base is 1 cubit high and 1 cubit wide, with a rim around the edge of 1 span. And from the base on the ground to the lower ledge is 2 cubits, and the width of the ledge is 1 cubit, and from the smaller ledge to the larger ledge 4 cubits, and the width of the ledge is 1 cubit. And the slaughter place hearth, and is 4 cubits high. That's how far it sits off the floor. And the 4 horns extend upward from the hearth. And the slaughter place hearth is 12 cubits long. and 12 wide, square at the corners, and the ledge is 14 long and 14 wide on the 4 sides, with a rim of a half a cubit round, and its base is 1 cubit all around, and its steps face east. Now, I sit there and I try to figure all this out, and I'm pretty sure this is the altar, that it matches the measurements. I wish, like I said, I wish I had somebody that was really good at math to help me with this. And plus it would help if I could go in and measure these things. And to be exact, because believe it or not, when you go look for the measurements of it, the Vatican has done a great job of hiding all that. You can't hardly find I was guesstimating, from my art history classes. But they've done a really good job of hiding the measurements on these things. One thing I did to check the height versus the width was since I didn't have an exact measurement, I took the same photo of it and flipped it on its side, and it's nearly twice as high as it is wide, and that fits the measurements in the scriptures. But I was just going to show you how I came about that. The 4 horns extend upward, like the scripture says, and there is a rim all the way around it that's approximately 10 inches wide, or a span. And the smaller ledge to the larger ledge is 4 cubits, and the width of the ledge is 1 cubit, and the width of the ledge is, let's see, I think I wrote that down twice, but the length of the ledge is about 1 cubit, and the base from the ground to the lower edge is 2 cubits, with the width of the ledge 1 cubit, and it's 1 cubit high top base. And the 4 horns do extend upward from the hearth. And the 4 columns are about 66 feet high. I did find that out. So it's about 66 foot high, the column part. And then the slaughter place hearth itself, the base of it down there where they've got the candlesticks and the cross and all that area, is 12 cubits long and 12 cubits wide, so it is a square, and that would just about be about the same size. Measurements from the scriptures, and that would make the altar hearth about 18 to 20 foot wide, because it's 12 cubits long and 12 wide, so that would probably be about right. Found a photo that showed the steps, and they do face east. And there's another scripture in there, and I can't find my slide on that, but the number of steps is the same too, as it is in Ezekiel. And in Ezekiel 43:17, he makes a point of saying that the ledge at the top is wider than the base, and that is true. The ledge at the top of this altar is wider than the base. Ezekiel 44, starting in verse 4, that he brought me by way of the north gate to the front of the temple, and I looked, and behold, the glory of Yahuwah filled the temple. And I fell on my face. And Yahuwah said to me, Son of man, mark well, see with your eyes, and hear with your ears, all that I shall tell you concerning the statutes of the temple of Yahuwah, and all its laws, and mark well the entrance to the temple and all its exits from the sanctuary, and say to the rebellious house, to the house of Israel, Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, O house of Israel, enough of all your abominations, in admitting foreigners uncircumcised in heart and flesh to be in my sanctuary, profaning my temple, when you offer to me my food and the fat and the blood, you have broken my covenant, in addition to all your abominations. And you have not kept charge of the holy things, but you have set others to keep charge for you in my sanctuary. Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, no foreigner uncircumcised in heart and flesh of all the foreigners who are among the people of Israel shall enter my sanctuary. But the Levites who went far from me, going astray from me, after idols, when Israel went astray, shall bear their punishment. They shall be ministers in my sanctuary, having oversight at the gates of the temple, and ministering in the temple. They shall slaughter the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall stand before the people to minister to them. Because they ministered to them before their idols, and became a stumbling block of iniquity to the house of Israel, therefore I have sworn concerning them, declares Yahuwah Elohim, and they shall bear their punishment. They shall not come near me to serve me as priest, nor come near any of my holy things, and the things that are most holy, but they shall bear their shame and their abominations that they have committed. Yet I will appoint them to keep charge of the temple, to do all its service, and all that is to be done in it. So they're going to be punished and have to keep the temple. Okay, now he's going outside. So we have a map here, and if you notice the key-looking hole thing there on the left, lower left, that is the square, and it goes straight out, and on the left of it runs this river, and north would be north of the river straight up. Okay, let's read what he says. Going on eastward with a measuring line in his hand, the man measured 1,000 cubits. Then he led me through the water, and it was ankle deep. Again he measured 1,000, and he led me through the water, and it was knee deep. Again he measured 1,000, and led me through the water, and it was waist deep. And again he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not pass through, for the water had risen. It was deep enough to swim in, a river that could not be passed through. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen this? Then he led me back to the bank of the river. So he's describing to the east the river, and that's where the river is to the east. Ezekiel 47:7. As I went back, I saw on the bank of the river very many trees, and on the one side and on the other. And he said to me, This water flows toward the eastern region and goes down into Araba and enters the sea. When the water flows into the sea, the water becomes fresh, and wherever the river goes, every living creature that swarms will live, and there will be many fish, for the water goes there, that the waters of the sea may become fresh. So everything will live where the river goes. Fishermen will stand beside the sea from Egidi to Egame. It will be a place for the spreading of nets. Its fish will be of very many kinds, and the fish of the great sea. But its swamps and marshes will not become fresh. They are to be left for salt. And on the banks on both sides of the river there will grow all kinds of trees for food. Their leaves will not wither, nor their fruit fail, but they will bear fresh fruit every month, because the water from them flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for healing. And this does run all the way down to that Arabic Sea, and from there it could go all the way to the oceans even. That's all I have so far. I'm going to have some more videos on this because I want to cover the significance of the sacrifices and stuff. But this is, you can definitely tell now why we're told to come out of her. Like Revelation 18:3-5, For all the nations have drunk up the wine of Elohim's fury, caused by her whoring. Yes, the kings of the earth went whoring with her, and from her unrestrained love of luxury, the world's businessmen have grown rich. Then I heard another voice out of heaven say, My people, come out of her, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not be infected by her plagues. For her sins are a sticky mass piled up to heaven, and Elohim has remembered her crimes. Okay, and then you got another one in Micah 4:2. Many heathens will go and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Elohim of Jacob, and he will teach us about his ways, and we will walk in the paths. For out of Zion will go forth the Torah, the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. This will be after the sun takes over. Isaiah 2:3. Many people will go and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Elohim of Jacob. He will teach us about his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion will go forth the Torah, the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. But I hope that y'all can see from this that if you're involved in any of the churches, you need to just get out of them and set yourself apart, as he says, and stay in his word and keeping his laws and statutes as much as we can possibly do that. What to do now? Listen to Yahuwah. Isaiah 49:8-10. Here's what Yahuwah says. At the time when I choose, I will answer you. On the day of salvation, I will help you. I have preserved you, and I have appointed you to be the covenant for a people, to restore the land and distribute again its ruined inheritances to their owners, to say to the prisoners, Come out, to those in darkness, show yourself. They will feed among the paths, and all the high hills will be their pastures. They will neither hunger nor thirsty, neither scorching wind nor sun will strike them, for he has mercy on them, and will lead them and guide them to the springs of water. Deuteronomy 4:44-45. This is the Torah which Moshe placed before the people of Israel. These are the instructions, laws, and rulings which Moshe presented to the people of Israel after they had come out of Egypt. We're coming out of Egypt, people. It's time. I know many people will watch this video and they will say that, oh, I'm not Israel. Well, it's really strange because when Yahushua was talking about leaving, the Pharisees turned to him and said, Where does he intend to go? To the north, to the lost house of Israel? They knew where they were. And also, even if you're not a Hebrew person or an Israelite, it's like when you read Isaiah 56, this is what Yahuwah tells us. Thus says Yahuwah, guard right ruling, and do righteousness. For near is my deliverance to come, and my righteousness shall be revealed. Blessed is the man who does this, and the son of man who lays hold on it, guarding the Sabbath, lest he profane it, and guarding his hand from doing evil. And let not the son of a foreigner, who has joined himself to Yahuwah, speak, saying, Yahuwah has certainly separated me from his people. Nor let the eunuch say, Look, I am a dry tree. For thus says Yahuwah, to the eunuchs who guard my Sabbath, and have chosen what pleases me, and hold fast to my covenant, to them I shall give my house, within my walls, a place and a name better than that of sons and daughters. I give them an everlasting name that is not cut off. Also, the sons of the foreigner who join themselves to Yahuwah, to serve him and to love the name of Yahuwah, to be his servants, all who guard the Sabbath and not profane it, and hold fast to my covenant, them I shall bring to my set-apart mountain, and let them rejoice in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their slaughterings are accepted on my altar, For my house is called the house of prayer for all peoples. The Master Yahuwah, who gathers the outcast of Israel, declares, I gather still others to him, besides those who are gathered to him. Like always, I'm going to give you the same advice at the end. Go back to the forgotten way, get into his word, and learn what it is. Jeremiah 6:16. Thus says Yahuwah, stand ye at the ways and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. Well, we have to walk therein or we're not going to make it. Well, I hope that you've gotten something out of this. This was a very difficult one to do because it's just a lot of information to try to show somebody else what you're seeing and when you're reading. But if you have anything to add that you've seen when you were reading Ezekiel, please do at the bottom, and I'll add it to my notes. And may Elohim bless you and keep you. May Elohim make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Elohim lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. Shalom, everybody.